Howdy, and welcome to today's Fi with Fitz. I'm Keith Fitz-Gerald. Thanks for joining me. You know, the S&P 500 is rising ahead of the Fed's next follies. Could there be a fly in the ointment? Yep. Do not be surprised if big traders push prices higher to draw in FOMO, the fear of missing out crowd, ahead of the Fed's next comments at 2 p.m. Eastern today. The playbook is still very simple, and it's one, honestly, that we've seen dozens of times in recent years. You have too. Perhaps you just didn't realize it. So here's the skinny. The Fed is widely expected to hold rates, but big traders and the media narrative will immediately shift to whether or not the Fed holds with 2 rate cuts that are already expected this year. Anything less or the slightest doubt whatsoever will immediately result in what's called a rug pull, meaning they'll take prices down sharply to fleece all the weak money and the weaker hands. Now, the Fed could also throw a spanner in things if Uncle Jay Powell, as in Chairman Jay Powell, goes off script with regard to his assessment of geopolitics, a trade war, or trade tariffs. Tariff tantrums, really. So stick to the playbook either way. The Fed has already caused the next 5 financial crises, and there's nothing you can do about that. But you absolutely can focus on buying great companies at great prices with even greater profit potential. Remember, uncertainty always gives way to clarity. So here's my playbook. Number 1, I'm still bullish on these stocks. Now, I sat down yesterday for a wonderful conversation with the brilliant Kelly Evans and super sharp Eamon Hears on CNBC. Now, call me crazy, but I'm still bullish on the 3 stocks that we discussed, and you can catch those on my YouTube channel. The investing tip, the thing I want you to think about, is that most investors think you make money only when stocks are going higher, but that's absolutely not true. The real money often gets made when you have the guts to buy in as they're going lower. Now, assuming they're great stocks in the first place. So change your tactics, not your conviction. Speaking of which, investors are bailing in record numbers again. Now, I can't think of a worse or more expensive mistake. Well, actually, scratch that, I can, but this is right up there. Individual investors who should be buying the dip are now running for the hills as the S&P 500 enters a totally normal 10% correction. In just 2 weeks, U.S. equity retail outflows have hit $4 billion, according to Barclays data, which means, of course, that those very same investors are missing out on buying low, reinvesting, compounding, and about a dozen other ways to make money. Reminds me of that old joke, you can't fix stupid. The data is screaming. The investors just aren't listening. Study after study after study shows that retail investors do exactly the right thing at precisely the wrong moment, meaning they buy when they should be selling and sell when they should be buying. Now, we've all been there at least once in our investing lifetime, so this is nothing to be ashamed of if you're one of them. Mistakes are tuition, something you hear me say many, many times. The data is downright brutal. For example, Delaware 30th Annual Quantitative Analysis of Investor Behavior, the QAIB, and boy is that a mouthful, found that while the S&P 500 averaged roughly 10% a year, the average investor barely scraped together 4% a year, just a hair above inflation. Why? Well, because again, they panic sell when they should be buying and FOMO buy when they should be selling. It is no wonder that most never pull ahead and worse, often fall behind. Now, folks who think they're being smart by timing the markets are just using fancy talk for losing money. Don't buy it? Pun absolutely intended? I get it. But let's run through a few recent examples that'll make my point. During the 2008 crash, many investors sold at rock bottom in a panic, but those who stayed invested and who continued to invest throughout, as I repeatedly encourage people to do, saw their portfolios recover and soar past pre-crisis levels. A decade later, the S&P 500 had more than quadrupled from the lows. Let me say that again, more than quadrupled from the lows, but many were still sitting in cash waiting for the right time to buy back in. During COVID and in March 2020, the S&P 500 dropped 34%, give or take, in just 33 days, leading many panicked investors to hit the eject handle and sell because they feared a prolonged crash. By April 2020, the markets had begun to rebound, and by August 2020, prices had fully recovered. By the end of 2021, the S&P 500 was up 100%. Repeat that. By the end of 2021, the S&P 500 was up 100% from March 2020 lows. Now, I could do this all day, but I don't want your eyeballs to glaze over. It's one thing if you need the money, and I get it. But to sell because you're trying to outguess the unguessable is just not a brilliant move. History shows very clearly that you have got to be in to win if what you want to win in what you want to do is win. If you don't care, that's fine too. Just don't fool yourself into thinking that you're playing chess when you're really just pushing tiddlywinks across the table. Alrighty. Nvidia shindig, the GTC, is well underway. So cue the frantic over-analysis. Armchair experts are now dissecting every last pixel of Jensen Huang's speech like it's the Rosetta Stone of AI investing. Some are even poring over spreadsheets, crunching ratios, and pretending they have an edge, when in reality, they're just proving to the rest of us that they don't understand how financial markets actually work. Not that I want to take anything away from these guys, because, hey, opinions are like belly buttons, but their misguided missives are at the least very entertaining. My take is keep it stupid simple. Nvidia has an 80% market share. Customers are beating a path to its door, and the company is selling every last chip it makes. But just in case you're a glutton for punishment, go to their website. Check out all the things that are happening. The introduction of the Blackwell Ultra GPU series, the new GPU Vera Rubin set for release in 2026, the major focus on physical AI, which is going to enable machines to interact with the physical world, includes robotics, among other things. Nvidia, Disney Research, Google DeepMind are all jointly developing Newton, an open source physics engine. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I found it also very intriguing that Wang noted that the amount of computational power we need is easily 100 times the amount we thought we needed this time last year. Now, no doubt the clickbait crowd is going to latch onto that one, and we're going to get email carpet bomb with all sorts of miraculous power plays that nobody's ever heard of. But that's beside the point. The more direct path to profits here, and the one I want you to think about, is to make the energy we already have more efficient when you need it, get it where we need it, when we need it. Then, when all that stuff's covered, you invest in the next generation energy. The regulatory process is going to be a word I can't use here today. Anyway, the OBA family's got this covered and has for a long time. Plus, they're enjoying some hefty dividends along the way as compensation for the risk they take as stock owners on the cusp of something bigger. Hopefully you are too. Now, if not, I'd love to toss my hat in the ring, and you know where to find me. Now, let's move on to Delaware. It's interesting. Could Delaware's governor finally be waking up to reality? Meta is now reportedly eyeing. Boy, I've rented lips today. Meta is now reportedly eyeing the exit door, hot on the heels of Elon Musk's departure and a bunch of other companies. So, translation: the money printer might stop going. Here's the kicker. Delaware rakes in over $1 billion a year, more than 20% of its tax revenue, from corporate filings. If the exodus continues, that's going to leave one heck of a hole in the state's budget. So now, in a totally not panic move, or at least that's the official story, Governor Matt Meyer is scrambling. He's holding emergency meetings with Meta execs and lawmakers to stop the bleeding. And, drumroll please, wait for it, lawmakers are suddenly and miraculously apparently considering a special legal challenge to Delaware's laws to keep companies from bailing. I don't know about you, but it's funny how fast the rulebook changes when tax revenue is on the line, huh? It's one of the cardinal rules of investing. Money, like water, always flows to where it's treated best. And finally today, I want to bring to your attention something really important, something I've been following for a long time. We're on the verge of 3D printing dang near everything. Now, for years I've been talking about this story, starting with the medical printing, then creeping into heavier industries like aircraft parts, housing, etc. Now, we're staring down a future where supply chains, factories, even entire industries get flipped on their heads. It will very much be adapt, adopt, or die. The only thing standing between us and this revolution is our still limited understanding of material science. But that too is changing quickly. This latest development has my full attention, and I can't wait to find an investable entry point. Right now, the market is littered with 3D printing stocks like Stratasys and Nano Dimension. But let's be real, they're just N+1 iterations. The real 0 to 1 breakthroughs, and the ones you'll want to focus on as an investor, are far more likely to come from big players with capital, scale, and distribution power to reshape whatever industry it is they already dominate. More likely, and now that I think about it, they'll just buy the disruptors and call it a day. So, Anyway, today's bottom line, real simple. Every dip, no matter how you feel about it personally, every dip is a chance to buy the right names, and every rip is a chance to unload the dogs. So, as always, let's make it a great day. You got this, I promise, and I'll see you next time.